On today's Transport Evolved, self-parking cars, self-driving cars, and free patents for all. These stories and more coming up next on Transport Evolved. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to episode number 225 of Transport Evolved, recorded on Sunday, January 11th, 2015. My name is Nikki Gordon-Bloomfield, and I'm your usual host into the world of future transport technology. If it's cleaner, greener, smarter, and safer, we cover it here on Transport Evolved. And we've got some great stories coming to you this week. Chock-a-block full because of CES and obviously the North American International Auto Show tomorrow. We've got two fantastic guests joining us, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and welcome them to the show. First up, all the way from San Francisco, Mr. Marc Geller of Plug-in America, amongst other things, and a Dr. Charger. Marc, welcome back to the show.
Hello, Nikki. Nice to be back.
Thank you for joining us at fairly short notice, I might add. So, how was your San Franciscan morning?
Gray, what we call chilly, but nothing to write home about.
Now, tell me, because it's kind of round about brunch time for you in San Francisco right now. Is there much of a thing now for brunch in San Francisco, or has that ship passed?
I'm sure there is. There are undoubtedly still the ladies who brunch amongst my younger friends, but I think my brunching days in those terms are over.
Fantastic. All right. Well, joining us from somewhere a little bit warmer than both Bristol, UK, where we record the show, and San Francisco is Joe Dugandzic, who's in Phoenix, Arizona. Hello, Joe. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Nikki? Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, Happy New Year. I'm a little bit dippy today because I've got a massive headache. I don't know. There's one of those days where you just cannot get rid of a headache. It's staying, and it's making me feel a bit fuzzy. So I hope I don't make any big mistakes today. But and
it's great to finally see you in real time.
It is, isn't it? It's really ironic.
This is the first time I've been on that we have a return video on the Skype.
It is ironic
awesome.
Because we've got return video for both our guests, but for some reason YouTube is not accepting our stream. And because of the ongoing problems we're having with YouTube, what I've decided to do is we're just recording this now to disk. I'll mix it down, and then we'll set the proper version up online later on. So I'm sorry if you tuned in wanting to watch this live. We've decided just to push forward and get it all done and put onto disc. And it will sound better afterwards, I am sure. We've got so much to talk through today. And I guess we're going to start. Joe, it's been CES this week, Consumer Electronics Show in Nevada, in Las Vegas. You went, didn't you?
I went virtually. Let's just say that I would love to say that I just came back on the plane and I avoided getting the CES flu like so many of the other participants who most likely got something over the week. But no, I watched it from afar. I've been to CES in the past, and it's a lot of fun, and it's massive. It's just a massive show. You have to pick your poison, what you're going to cover and whatnot. But nope, just covered it from afar this time.
Now, this year, the Internet of Things, which is what we had last year, has kind of grown up a little bit, hasn't it? And we're now seeing that move into the automotive sphere. But there's some weird stuff as well, right?
Well, there's a lot. The Internet of Things, home automation, those kind of go hand in hand. And it was the big buzzword of CES this year, because every year it seems people are saying, well, this is going to be the next big thing. The Internet of Things term didn't really exist until about last year, where everything started to be connected. So it's been interesting to watch, and there's been some large announcements, or semi-large announcements, but nothing truly mind-blowing or groundbreaking, in my opinion.
It's an interesting thing that you mentioned that, because I've seen the Internet of Things grow into some weird and wacky stuff. connected things that maybe you wouldn't necessarily think of as needing to be connected. But we've also seen a lot of electric vehicle connected things this year, which we'll come to later on in the show. But you're quite right. It's a buzzword. It's almost a thing that's used to get VC funding, if I can be so blunt. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I think so. Any manufacturer that's in the consumer electronics space, even by a slight margin, wants to be in it just to have something to say and just to have some announcement. And we are seeing, I cover home automation, lighting and whatnot for my own venture Lighting Answers. So I was looking at CES with a lot of interest this year. But I think everyone is trying to anticipate what Apple really is coming out with their HomeKit platform and how that's really going to operate, and if it's going to really take the scene by storm. We're not quite there yet because no one has actually seen real live demos with HomeKit devices, but there were a few announcements of those type of devices for their platform at CES. So the next couple months is going to be very interesting to watch.
It's going to be very, very interesting to watch, and I'm glad you gave that plug there, because that was going to be the next thing I was going to say. Is obviously you were there virtually for the lighting side of things, and because you said to me, you didn't get a chance to look at much in the way of tech. We'll come to some of the car tech stories later on. But Marc, you've been busy lately looking at Nissan and its battery warranties and whatnot for the Nissan Leaf. Now, Nissan Leaf now just celebrated its 4th birthday. Over 30,200 Nissan Leafs sold last year alone in the US. Massive numbers worldwide, and some of those early cars are now starting to show signs of battery aging. Obviously, if you live somewhere like Joe, it's in a hot place like Arizona, then those battery degradation effects are felt sooner than, say, you or I would in San Francisco or Bristol. But even I've started to feel some degradation, and I'm at nearly 70,000 miles now. And you're a bit concerned, aren't you, about what happens next?
Well, I think it's probably time for drivers to get together to try and compare data that we've got, to the extent we have real data, and understand what's happening with these batteries. And for Nissan, I think, to hear us loud and clear that we are, their biggest supporters, and at the same time, we want to fully understand what's going on with our cars, and as well be treated fairly. I'm, certainly noticing significant battery degradation, at least as expressed in the data that I get out of the car.
Right.
And I can't say that I've done a road test that's, methodologically sound in terms of seeing exactly how far I can drive until the car stops, for example. Mm-hmm. But I can extrapolate from the data I'm given, last night I ended up driving, I think it was 41 miles after a full charge that registers in the car now as 81 or 82%. I get 232 gids, if that means anything to anybody.
It will to the geeky, nerdy lots of us.
Yeah. And so, after traveling that 42 miles, the guessometer says I have 11 miles left. I've got 2 bars left, and my gid meter, or whatever the little meter is, I don't know what we call it, that an aftermarket item that someone had developed, says 20% left. And so I don't know, to me that means I've probably got, something around 60 miles, maybe 55 miles full on. And, that's less than even I'm sort of willing to completely forgive Nissan.
Okay.
And so I think we need to see what's really up, and then figure out whether this is simply the 2011, 2012 cars. Did the battery technology change significantly enough going into 2013, 2014? And I think we just don't know the answers to those questions because automakers are not terribly transparent.
I think it's going to be a tough one because I hear what you're saying. We actually had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. We had Paul Scott on, and we were talking about Leaf Rangers. And I'd said my wife was taking our Chevrolet Volt to work because she's got about a 48-mile drive to work and 50-mile drive back. And she was taking the Volt because she was a bit worried about Leaf range. But now we've secured charging at work. She's actually now taking the Leaf, but it's just at the limit on the freeway with the heater on in a cold environment. Just at the limit of what the car can do. I can still get 60 miles out of mine, maybe 70, but it's certainly a lot less than the car could when new. Now, I don't want to dwell too much on this particular subject because it's a long, lengthy subject. We could have a whole show based on Leafs and Leaf degradations. You can now buy a brand new battery pack for your Leaf with the latest technology. Obviously, that does cost you money, and there are some limits as to whether a car is considered, its battery is considered worse than the battery warranty that Nissan has provided, in which case you've got a replacement, or it's considered acceptable degradation, in which case you won't. But I forgot what I was going to say now. Oh, we've completely blanked. That's stupid. I told you that I was going to be doing that with my head the way it is today. But the Leaf battery pack and the range, it does seem to be a problem, and I think it is something that Nissan needs to look at. But that's what I was going to say. You have experience previously, don't you, Mark, about battery packs and length? Because for a long time you were a Toyota RAV4 EV driver. That was your main car. Toyota RAV4 EV, the first generation cars, they're still going. 12
That's
years
correct.
After they effectively, 13 years after Toyota stopped making them.
Yeah, that's correct. I still have my 2002 RAV4 EV, and of course, it's completely different battery technology. It's nickel metal hydride. It's a larger battery pack. It's called 27 kilowatt hours. I suspect it's something approximate to the size of the Kia Soul pack. It, as far as I can tell, I don't drive it as often as I drive the Leaf. I'm preserving it for some museum somewhere at some. But it certainly has held up much better and still goes much further with much less battery degradation, if any, after almost 95,000 miles on the original battery pack and really no service of any sort.
Yeah.
But I think we just simply need to learn what's going on with lithium packs, what the best chemistry is. If other battery packs like GM's, for example, or Tesla's technology does not show this sort of degradation, then car companies need to take that into account, learn the honest information, and move on. If it's something that's just so with lithium, well, then consumers need to come to understand what to expect, and presume that the other benefits outweigh that fact of degradation. It may mean you need to start with a slightly larger pack.
It does, and I was going to add that the engineering does come into this. I like to quote Mr. Scott from Star Trek. An engineer is always a wee bit conservative, at least on paper. The idea that whether we're talking about a petrol car, a diesel car, or an electric car, or a hydrogen fuel cell car, the people building those cars, designing those cars, are always going to be a little bit conservative. And I'm wondering if Nissan was maybe pushing the boundaries a little bit further than it ought to have done, in order to get that headline range that it claimed initially.
And what about the battery cooling technology?
And that was the other thing I was going to say, Joe. Well,
interestingly enough, because I know two very good friends of mine have a Ford Focus electric that they leased about 2 weeks after I got my Nissan Leaf in 2013. They're both 2013 models, and this was a few months ago. I think it was at 11,000, because I don't drive my Leaf, or I used to not drive it all that much. I think at about 11 or 10,000 miles of driving, I had lost 1 bar of capacity. And they say that they have not lost any capacity on their Focus as of yet. And of course, the Focus has that active cooling technology for the battery, where the Leaf does not. So granted, we're in Phoenix, so we're in an extreme climate for half the year at this point. So that could play into it too.
And I think actually the liquid cooling does come into play. I've definitely noticed less degradation from my Volt than I have my Leaf. Although my Volt only has about a third of the miles on it that the Leaf has. All right, let's move forwards. to some of the coverage that we've had this week from CES and talking about batteries. And Mark, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at this. It's an Israeli firm called StoreDot, and they make use of something called microdots, which essentially are working at very, very small levels, little tiny crystals, 2 nanometers across, that are capable of enhancing the energy transference capabilities of metals, and therefore allow a battery pack to be charged super quick. It'll also increase your energy density, etc., etc., etc. Being used on displays for LCD TVs, they can then naturally emit light. It's kind of that next generation super technology, a bit like supercapacitors in terms of the impact that it could have in graphene on the technology world. It's nothing to do with graphene, but it's that same kind of step forward. It's actually biological in origin. They're claiming StoreDot technology can be used very cheaply. It can be manufactured from organic materials rather than toxic chemicals, and demonstrated at CES this year a battery that can charge a mobile phone from empty to full in 30 seconds. Next year, the company promises it's going to have that technology ready for an electric car that will charge from 5 minutes from empty to full. I'd like to get your thoughts on that technology and how plausible you think it is, first of all, and secondly, how you think that technology could or couldn't have an impact to the future fuels and electric car world.
Well, I have absolutely no ability to analyze the technology. Let us hope. As you said earlier in the program, these companies that show up at CES have to make a big splash in order to get funding. Mm-hmm. More bad ideas get funded than good ideas, right? Because, in fact, the investor class tends to be swayed not by real information, but by sex appeal on some level.
You're not suggesting that investors don't know their technology, are you?
I've met them, so I know they don't know their technology.
Okay, well, StoreDot is founded a fair while ago, but it's $42 million worth of investment so far. So it's obviously got some investors to part with their money. This point.
My answer to that is always the same. Better Place got $850 million of investors. And, right from the get-go when they announced what their program was, it was clear to people who were involved in electric cars, for the most part, that it was crap, yes. That it wasn't going to move because it didn't answer the actual needs of the real world. And so, I think it's fantastic. If it's so, there would be nothing better than to get cars and other devices charged into batteries rapidly without destroying the battery. I tend to not be a believer that things happen suddenly, quickly, and in a revolutionary way that alter industries. They take a little bit of time. Batteries at this point are improving at 7% a year, and getting energy into a battery at the rates that we can do so presently could take care of 80 to 90% of the people's needs 80 to 90% of the time. And so I'm much more interested actually in pushing that forward rather than thinking there's a silver bullet out there that's going to jolt us into proper behavior.
Right. Interestingly,
my question on, if I could just interject real quick on this is not there's been, I think, a few announcements definitely over the past 12 months about battery storage that can be recharged very, very quickly, and obviously the EV market and the smartphone market are two huge markets for it because people are not very patient. My question is, on the EV side of things, if it's going to recharge, say, my Leaf in 3 minutes, what kind of power feed to the charging station is going to be required? I mean, we see the massive charging power supplies for the level 3 charging. This would be what, level 7?
Yeah,
or level 27? Because it's like you need to be right at the actual power plant.
You're right. And I'm just trying to think now. So we can probably work this out. Nissan Leaf 24 kilowatt hour battery. Well, let's just say currently 50 50 kilowatts will give you a half-hour charge. So it'd be 100 kilowatts for 15 minutes. So you'd need about 250 kilowatts of power. How does that sound?
I got that right here.
Otherworldly. I mean, we have enough difficulty getting folks to simply allow people to use 1.5 kilowatts, to put in to let their car charge while it's sitting around for the day. So,
and let's be honest here, it's all about being appropriate, isn't it? Appropriate charging for appropriate usage. And I actually wrote an opinion piece this week, an editorial at Transport Evolved about that very purpose. We are so obsessed as a society in being kind of appearing to do the latest, greenest, safest, coolest thing, whatever it happens to be, the trendiest thing. And very often people in political power or in decision-making powerful positions go with what they think is the flashiest solution, and that's not always the best solution. And what you end up with is situations where you have rapid DC quick charging stations in parking lots for train stations, which is fine for a local taxi company that's coming and dropping people off at the train station and then going to pick up their next fare. That's brilliant. But for somebody who's commuting, who's leaving their car at 8 o'clock in the morning, jumping on a train, and they're not going to return until 7 o'clock in the evening, that's kind of a bit of a wasted set. So I think this is going to be a very interesting technology to follow. I'm just going to add, nano dot technology is not particularly easy to understand, and store dot doesn't make it easy either. This does sound very much like a marketing pitch. I'm going to read it to you now. Nanodots are bioorganic peptide molecules that change the rules of mobile device capabilities. This is actually what the site says, and it's not necessarily all that easy to understand, and it seems like they're being superfluous with their words for no reason. All right, let's move on.
There was something else that came out at CES with TVs, and I think it was called nanocrystals or quantum crystals. So, whether it's really something real and going to improve our lives or not is yet to be seen.
All right, now we're going to talk about Marc's favorite technology, Marc. Hydrogen fuel cells. Okay, so this week at CES, Toyota did what I think I can fairly say was unthinkable before the start of last week. It was an announcement that it's going to give away all of its hydrogen fuel cell patents. Now, the skeptic among us may say that's because it's the only way that hydrogen fuel cell technology has a chance of being commercially viable, giving away the patents so that more people can work on it and economies of scale can come into play. And that's kind of the hint that Bob Carter, Toyota North America, said at the conference. But the more happy side of me goes, well, isn't that nice? Toyota really wants to promote its fuel cell technology, and it's effectively doing what Tesla's done with its patents, and we all cheered when Tesla gave its patents away.
Well, I would say just what you just mentioned. In fact, it's even more pathetic than them feeling maybe if we give it away, it will succeed. In fact, it's, Elon got an awful lot of press 3 months ago or 6 months ago, whenever it was, that he announced they were willing to give away their patents, whatever that means. And they just copied them after undoubtedly many, many expensive meetings and conversations and decision-making. And it will have likely no impact on either the acceptance of fuel cell vehicles and hydrogen technology, or in any way influence anything that happens at Toyota itself. I look at it and I think, Elon was smart because he made news with something that likely isn't very significant. And Toyota was pathetic enough to think that they could just copy them, do it themselves and make a splash. And I suspect the fact that Elon's got a car that's really working and people want to buy is going to be more significant than any discussion of patents on either side. And the fact that they've got a car that it just doesn't seem to have a future, as is related to the story you're going to do later in the program on Hyundai, is more important than this little notice.
I think the interesting thing is that Toyota really went to town with this. You know, they got some guest speakers. They had you can see the fancy graphics there in the background. Toyota's message seems to be one of self-aggrandizement, really, doesn't it?
Well, they have spent a whole heck of a lot of money on it. They obviously want to recoup their investment at some point, but as has been discussed on this show before, it would seem that fuel cell technology for vehicles may not really be all that it's cracked up to be, or it may still be the 25 years away moniker.
All right. Well, let's talk about something a bit more interesting, at least to the world of future cars, in terms of God, that sounded terrible. Let's talk about something. I'm so dismissive of hydrogen. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be dismissive of hydrogen. I should be kind of open, and I try not to let my personal opinions influence my journalistic integrity. Let's talk about a different type of future car technology. How about that? Nvidia, famous for its graphics cards. In fact, today's show is being powered by 1, 2, 3 different Nvidia graphics cards. Very, very fast, great at parallel processing. You sometimes find them in academic institutions running computer simulations. But Nvidia also makes a whole range of tablet chips, etc., that you won't even notice. Nvidia chips found inside the Tesla Model S for graphics displays, among other things. And at CES this year, Nvidia has unveiled a new car chip, 2 new car computers, in fact. One designed for in-car displays, which is what you're seeing now. And it can run, multiple displays all around the car. The other one, very, very, very focused towards autonomous driving specs, Joe. This is a computer that has 12 high-definition video camera inputs. Huge processing power and the ability to run autonomous drive software. And in fact, I think, although it wasn't said as much at the conference, it has effectively been produced for or in collaboration with Audi, which of course is Volkswagen's luxury arm, and Audi already well known for its self-driving technology.
Well, I think this is a pretty interesting announcement. When I saw it, I was surprised to see Nvidia and the automotive industry. At first, I thought, well, does that mean if I'm playing my driving game on a tablet that I'm actually going to be controlling my car in real life? But I think this could mark a shift or a trend where you have existing chip manufacturers who already specialize in all these high performance chips, and it's really not that much of a shift, to reuse that word, to move into yet another sector in terms of being able to do autonomous control, because it all comes down to processing. There's obviously the inputs from all these sensors and cameras, but it all comes down to processing power, and that's really what we're starting to see in cars in every part of our lives, right. Literally.
Right. And
so I'm not quite sure what to make of it in terms of, are you going to see the Nvidia sticker on your car? Is that going to be the next thing? What chip is inside your car? But obviously, I would expect 1 or 2 other manufacturers to follow suit probably in the next 6 months as sort of a Me Too thing. It is very exciting, and you've got some stories coming up, about autonomous vehicles too. We have. So it's a pretty exciting year, honestly.
The processing power inside your modern car is as much, if not more, than the processing power that you had inside your desktop computer 10 years ago. It is amazing. Even a few years ago. I mean, listen to some of these specs. This is it's based on the Nvidia Tegra X1 mobile super chip. It's capable of 1 teraflop. That's 1 trillion operations per second. In terms of its processing power. It's capable of processing 1.3 gigapixels per second. Gigapixels per second. That is unheard of in terms of processing power in a car. And it can power 16.8 million pixels worth of dashboard screens and displays. That is incredible. I mean, it really, really is. And even if you're just talking about having in-car entertainment to keep your kids quiet on a long-distance trip, it is truly fantastic. And I think business to business for the auto industry and these chip manufacturers is a really, really, really important thing. But the other thing to bear in mind is that the chip inside these computers is based on the Maxwell GPU, which has just been released by Nvidia. And actually, Marc, was recently used, I don't know if you heard this, Nvidia used their Maxwell GPUs to prove that the lunar landings on the Apollo mission did actually happen, because lots of conspiracy theorists have been saying for years and years and years it didn't actually happen. It was filmed in a studio. How come that one of the astronauts was lit up really brightly? It looked like they were backlit, etc., etc., etc. And it turns out that the Nvidia Maxwell chipset proved with really, really complex mathematical lighting that these things. This is why these things took place, and it was all to do with the reflection of the sunlight off the white body suit that the astronaut was wearing. It's incredible.
And we should believe the chips over humans in the past. Why?
Well, I mean, I suppose it's it's proven mathematically, and I always trust maths.
Oh, it's proven mathematically. This should shut down all the conspiracy theorists. I'm
yes,
sure.
And if not that, I mean, we've got a conspiracy theorist watching the show, and it's really funny. Someone who we've actually had to ban from the Transport Evolved YouTube channel because they keep posting weird stuff. Posted a comment, and then they posted an identical comment from a different account, and it was all about conspiracies. It was all a bit funny. All right. Moving on, talking about autonomous technology, we are, we saw so much at CES this year in terms of autonomous vehicle technology that I think this is going to be the year that we start to see autonomous vehicle technology break into the mainstream. But we'll come to that in just a second. And we're going to have a quick ad break, or rather, we're not going to have an ad break. If you've been watching Transport Evolve for a while, you know this is where we've traditionally had our call for donations, and we've had to stop that through changes to EU tax law. It's complicated and long. I'm not going to go into it now, but we are looking for sponsors to help fill this gap. So if you're a firm or a company or an individual that has a product that you think would go well, be advertised well to our audience, rapidly growing audience, then do get in touch. You can contact us via email, show@transportevolved.com. All right, on to part two. We've got fantastic Joe Dugandzic, lighting expert and autonomous person, autonomous expert, autonomy in the home, not in the person, obviously. Good.
Yeah, don't overhype my skills.
And also the wonderful Marc Geller from Plug in America and Adopt a Charger. Now, Marc, Adopt a Charger is still going really strong, isn't it? And it helps to ensure that people who want to use electric car charging stations don't arrive to find that they're vandalized and horrible and not looked after.
We're doing our best. I mean, I think what we've realized is that, simple is the best answer to making charging available in many different ways. And certainly, for the most part, Adopt a Charger chargers have just continued to work because they don't have any of the network glitches and other sophisticated problems that some of the networks have, which isn't to say we aren't subject to problems. Lately, the i3 has been causing no end of difficulties for charging stations all over the place, as apparently there's some complications that have caused the cars not to accept a charge. And ultimately, after repeated in and outs of somebody trying to get a car to charge at the station freaks out and shuts down. But overall, Adopt a Charger is still going strong. We're doing particularly the work with the California Energy Commission on bringing charging to state and some national parks here in California, and we've done work in Michigan already in that regard. So we're trying. Our belief is that charging needs to be simple and accessible in these early phases, in this early 5 or 10 years of trying to get folks into electric cars for whom this is all new, and you got to give them a good reason to do it. And one thing that makes it easier to move over to electric cars is if you know that charging is easy and accessible. And since electricity is really so inexpensive and ubiquitous, complicating the provisioning of that electricity now only leads to a slower uptake of electric vehicles.
Right.
Needless to say, we will ultimately see many and varied, sophisticated solutions to electric car charging and every other aspect of our electrical lives. But it is putting an undue burden, I think, on electric cars if we feel that that's where we will start with all the smarts. In fact, all it does is slow the uptake of electric vehicles if we make it complicated to just plug the goddamn thing in.
So I'm going to be interested to see, Mark, if you think that this next story is an example of that overcomplication. BMW at CES this week announced a new suite of charging services called the Intelligent iHome Charging Service. It's designed to integrate with people's home generation systems if they've got photovoltaic solar panels on their home. It's also designed to integrate with the local utility grid. It's also designed to integrate if you've got any of these they're not quite very popular at the moment in the States, but they are very popular or starting to become popular in Germany. The systems where you can have solar panels which charge up a battery bank, and then they can either feed power back to the grid or to the home, etc., etc. It's kind of, think of it like an energy management system for your home. BMW's charge services allow you to tweak your car's charging behavior based on whether the sun is shining, whether it's going to be sunny later or sunny now, or how much power you've got in your home already, on how much power is being used by the grid. It's designed to save you money and make your charging and your car greener. But it sounds as though you might be a bit worried about the practicalities of it.
Oh, I think it's just premature. I mean, not that the concepts aren't interesting and eventually this will all happen. But again, a simple net metered solar system and plugging your car into the wall does most of those things. There's certainly, I just think that, there's a lot of this sophisticated talk that gets investors off and gets, the scientists off. And I think this is a simple task, getting folks to plug into cars, and all of that complicates it. I think ChargePoint, like all charging network companies, is looking for a raison d'etre. I mean, it needs to continue to excite people and particularly investors so that someone will dump money in it, because they're certainly not making a lot of money at $1 an hour or whatever they might charge from the few people who are willing to pay for that charging. And I think we know, in fact, from the Ecotality and Blink episode with the original rollout of home charging stations that the Department of Energy supported, that, in fact, having that network connection and an attempt to simply collect data was such a failure, really, with systems going down and the added cost of simply getting the connectivity for something that just it had no added value. All of the data you needed could be gotten from the car, the ability to turn it on or turn it off or do heating or whatever else might matter. I find this is really likely a save ChargePoint kind of a notion. Not that ChargePoint's had any difficulty getting investors. But
So just to clarify, obviously there were two stories here. BMW launched its own interconnected home charging service, which is completely separate from ChargePoint, and then ChargePoint themselves. So this is the BMW one. Whoops. The BMW one is there. That's the BMW one. And then we've also got the ChargePoint services have this system that they're setting up where you can effectively earn points from not using your charging station during rush hour and power rush hour as opposed to
my basic point still stands. Everyone is finding reasons to overcomplicate with the simple matter. If BMW or Nissan, for that matter, wanted to really promote electric cars, they would make very clear that, in fact, more than half of the folks who are buying these cars are satisfactorily charging at 120 volts at home with the connector that came with the car. Yet no one is making that plain. And ChargePoint itself has complicated, is trying to stay in the home charging market as one of the significant markets where, in fact, people at the moment still are willing to buy 240 volt level 2 connectors. And they want to try and suggest a reason that they are the unit that you ought to buy.
Now, Joe, you and I are quite gadget focused. We like our gadgets.
For sure.
Do you agree with what Marc's saying, or do you think that there can be a case made for having some kind of gadgety, nerdy integration with your car at this point in history? I can see it going either way.
Yeah, it can go either way, and I know that the rollout, and I'm not going to go into my whole story, but obviously I've said it on previous shows. I went through multiple phases of where can I plug my car in, because apartment complex didn't have chargers, they didn't allow it. I had to do it via extension cord. Now I finally live in a home that actually does have charging available, or at least I can plug in on 110. I don't know. I would assume that every time you take your vehicle, your EV, or even partially connected, EV like the Volt, to the dealer, that they're downloading this, charging data and reporting it back somewhere. I'm assuming that is occurring, because if it isn't, then where is that information going back? For either the governments or the program that rolled all this stuff out. From my understanding, it was, again, that the data was supposed to be gotten or received from the chargers themselves, in terms of how many people are using them. Now, I'll be honest, I see obviously more EVs out there every day, and if I do happen to use charging, out and about, I see some, vehicles charging, but not usually that many, unless it's at a really popular location, like a mall or something else. I think it can really complicate things at this point, to have too many options available. I was just saying that in terms of the connected home. People are just getting blasted with all these different options. And it can be a bad thing for consumers. Marc is right that if you can just get the data out of the car or some other method, you don't need all this extra stuff, then let's not complicate it. And they are. I have a feeling that there's going to be more consolidation in the charging company market, because I can't see them, aside from actually selling the stations, making a whole lot of money, even long term. No. But we need them somehow. We need these stations available, by the side of the road, especially if you're going to take a longer trip.
I can, and it is about appropriate charging in appropriate places at the end of the day. But I can also see, there are some technology solutions. As a nerd, as a geek, I like having control over my car, and I don't necessarily like, for example, Nissan Car Wings. I don't like Nissan's default Car Wings app. It's buggy. It doesn't always work. There's a great third-party app available, which I use, called Leaf Link.
Oh, really?
iOS,
I didn't even know that.
which is great. And there is even a Python script. So if you're into your home automation, I've got a Raspberry Pi running at home in the other room, actually, which has Python installed. And there's a little script that is available on GitHub. You can download it and you can put it in your Python library, and you can set that up in a terminal window. So I just SSH into it, and it polls my car when it's charging every few minutes or every 10 minutes to see how many miles, and it's an automated process, so I don't have to kind of keep pressing the button. I just keep it down in a little window, and it's great because you can see if the car's full or not. I can see it going either way. I like the idea. I like what these guys are trying to do, and I think we need to support them, but I think we also need to make sure that consumers understand that this is not a prerequisite for owning a plug-in car of any description. I'm also going to go back a little bit here, because As you may have noticed a few seconds ago or a few minutes ago when we started this topic, there was an image that flashed up that I'd forgotten about. We'd blasted past this in the show notes. Tomorrow is the start of the North American International Auto Show in Detroit. We're going to see the 2016 Chevrolet Volt in all its glory for the first time, although we all know now what it looks like from the outside because it broke cover at CES, and there was a three-quarter reveal at CES, and very interestingly lots of fans say it's ugly and they don't like it and it's very uninspired, but Chevrolet is going to be unveiling a concept car which we believe is going to be called the Bolt, and someone in the plug-in
Isn't that
world
confusing? Volt and the Bolt.
Yeah. And of course, Bolt being that fantastic Disney movie for kids, which was
I love it.
very, very fun. But someone's actually photoshopped a Bolt, Chevy Bolt, which I think is brilliant. Mark, what do you think of this promised $30,000 car with a range of 200 miles? It's going to come out tomorrow. I'm in two minds because on one hand I'm going, yay, GM's working on an EV, and on the other hand I'm going, GM's talking a lot, not actually showing us much.
Well, in that regard, they're like everybody else. My first response will be great. I would buy it tomorrow. I am ready today to buy any vehicle that has 125 miles of range and a fast charge port. That's what I want. I think that there is there still is a larger market for a much cheaper, say 75-mile range car. I think that the 24 kilowatt hour Leaf or the 20 kilowatt hour iMEV, I think that those vehicles have yet to find their full market. And because they will inevitably cost less than a 125 mile or 150 mile or a 200 mile range car, those are the cars that commuters and local drivers will want to buy. But yes, the sooner Nissan or General Motors or Tesla comes out with a 150 to 200 mile range car, the better for that group of people who really want to get rid of a gas car that they may have in addition to an electric car. And I'm hopeful. I think that clearly the name has some problems, as John Volker pointed out. I think that it's writing off the entire Spanish-speaking world to suggest that, I mean, there's no difference between a Volt and a Volt.
It's true.
And so, you walk into the dealer and the dealer goes, B or W, or V. You got to figure out what you're talking about. So that's got its problems, and I hope that's not indicative of the seriousness with which they're attempting the project. I hope that the batteries they see coming down the pike are really sufficient to the task of a $30,000 200-mile range car. I salute them. I'm ready.
I'm laughing because I went to music college with a guy called he was from Barcelona, and his name was Pedro Castellano. That was actually his name. His mother and his father happened to have the same surname. I don't think they were related, but they just happened to have the same name. And of course, in that part of the world, when you get married, you double barrel your name. And he was a tuba player. And I remember one day him coming on stage in music college in our second year for his recital. And he said, Today I play the Van Williams tuba concerto. And everyone went, what? What's the Van Williams? It's Vaughan Williams. And it's exactly as you were saying, Mark. No difference between a B and a V. All right. So Audi demonstrated some self-driving car technology at CES, as did Volkswagen. Now, Volkswagen, it's its first time at CES this year, Joe. But it seemed to come in with a really big bang, didn't it?
It did, and I did actually see a demo. One of the technology networks that I follow, Twit, otherwise known as This Week in Tech for their main show, had one of their people out there, and he was in one of the demo vehicles. And evidently what they did was the e-Golf had these sensors for semi-autonomous, not fully. I think it's not really designed to be autonomous driving, but it will park itself and move around and get to its charging location and come back to you autonomously. Evidently, they had the sensors in the vehicle, and then they enabled some additional, or wrote and enabled some additional software to make this work. And I don't think anyone was truly expecting it, especially from VW. And I did think that was really impressive, and it worked really well. I think some people, when they get in these cars or they see these cars actually operating either semi-autonomously or fully autonomously, are a little freaked out at first. And it can be scary because, again, you have this vehicle doing its thing. But it is very exciting. And as we see more companies and manufacturers rolling this out, more people will probably become comfortable with it. At some point, we'll have fully autonomous vehicles, but I still think that's a little longer away than most people predict.
Well, it's interesting because obviously Volkswagen's talking about having the really huge suite of technology. So we've got interconnected with your iPhone or Android device that allows you to have the screen of your phone or gadget on the car's touchscreen display, which is a lot of car makers are already doing. Then you have a learning mode that enables the car to learn particular parking modes that you normally execute and then eventually take over. You've got the self-driving, self-parking valet mode style, which will eventually lead to fully self-driving. Then you've got inductive charging system. Volkswagen's designed this whole system with a platform that lifts up underneath the car so that the separation between the primary and the secondary plate is basically a tiny air gap to increase efficiency and replicate the same kind of efficiencies that you would have with conductive charging. Now, I must say, I've never been a fan of inductive charging because I always have viewed it historically as being, I suppose, a little bit of overkill, really. But when you pair that with autonomous drive technology and having the car, go and park itself in a kind of a valet situation, that does seem to make sense. I don't know how long it's going to take Volkswagen to bring this into the real world, but obviously its luxury arm Audi also demonstrated its piloted drive technology, which is essentially the same kind of technology sphere. It drove from Silicon Valley to Las Vegas. We had this really cute advert from Audi, which demonstrates someone driving a car, having their dog drive a car, which is just insane. And I thought, I think the whole thing is wonderfully fun. Whether it will actually make it into the mainstream market or not, I don't know. Marc, you like the touch and the feel of good old school technology, don't you?
Well, I like to drive. If I'm not going to drive, I'd rather be in a bus. I'd rather, be in a subway train. I'd rather be with other folks. I see no reason why we should have lots of we should be trying to sell autonomous vehicles. I think the interesting questions about this really are the ethical questions that will come up as the cars get programmed to drive. I think the cars are going to have to be programmed to make decisions in circumstances where bad things can happen, where someone runs in front of the car, a kid, or maybe two people, and the car is going to have to make a decision: do I hit the kids, or do I go over the cliff? Do I kill the person who owns the car, or do I kill maybe the two people? And what value do I ascribe to whatever the sentient being outside the car is versus the person inside the car? And, who's going to take responsibility for those decisions or not take responsibility? If this is a big corporation, does a corporation even possibly have the same level of liability as a human being? And if not, why not? So, those are the interesting questions to me that I sort of hope we continue to discuss for the next, say, 40 or 50 years until I have no part in this discussion.
There is an element of, Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, I think, that has to come into play, right? And teaching cars and autonomous drive technology to do that. We know for a fact that Elon Musk is suspicious of artificial intelligence, so I don't think you're alone in that, the self-driving car world. Interestingly, I've been driving a car this week. Marc and I are going to be doing a charged up soon. We've just filmed a quick charge of the Volkswagen e-Golf, which is great fun. And it has, in the UK, definitely, it has adaptive cruise control. And you can actually use that essentially as a semi-autonomous driving technology in stop-go traffic, because it will slow your car right down. You can set your cruise control to sort of 20 miles an hour. And then if you press the resume button and then just tap the accelerator, when the car in front moves away, it will follow the car in front at a set distance. And it works 90% of the time, although I did discover if the lights change and you move away and you're barreling along at, say, 30 or 40 miles an hour and there's suddenly a queue of traffic up in front, it does have that moment where the car's doing 40 quite happily. And I did find myself pressing the brake pedal before the before the system kicked in, because it's quite jolty. Be interesting to see how it moves forward and whether people will buy this technology. But I mean, Joe, BMW also demonstrated wireless charging, autonomous driving at the CES, didn't it? I mean, it did this whole valet parking system where we're seeing this demonstration now. Someone's got out of the car, activated it from is that a Galaxy smartwatch there?
Looks like it.
And the car parks itself. This is value add, isn't it?
Yeah, we're seeing, like I said before, we're seeing everyone kind of get on board with this. Obviously, this technology is not necessarily that easy to actually make happen. So at least the manufacturers either are stealing someone else's technology behind it or actually developing their own. And I think that it's important with these type of features, if we are really to get to autonomous driving vehicles, true autonomous vehicles, it's probably going to take many manufacturers developing their own ideas and sharing them so that there can ultimately be one super reliable solution.
Right.
It really has to be that. I for work, occasionally I fly one of these drones, and they're very reliable, but they have challenges as well. A couple days ago, I had one nearly fly away from me, and I got control of it, but it kind of crashed. So you don't want to have that happen when you're in the autonomous vehicle. So I think it's important to see a lot of this tech come out. It is very exciting, and only time will tell.
Indeed. And just for the final story of the segment, we don't really need to talk about this very much, just totally geek out about this. NASA and Nissan. It was announced on Friday. I don't think Nissan was at CES. I certainly didn't see Nissan covering anything at CES. But NASA and Nissan are going to be working together on self-driving car technology. I got to hand it to Nissan.
When
if
NASA's
you're going to choose someone,
that's huge.
Yeah. And especially in a world where NASA is now farming out a lot of its some of its technology to other companies. I've got SpaceX getting involved in the commercial space world, and NASA is paying SpaceX to send things into space. But let's not forget, NASA is not just about space. I mean, NASA is about so much more. They've got massive departments working on things on terra firma. But the interesting thing here is that NASA and Nissan are working on autonomous drive technology, which could maybe one day be used on another planet. That is so freaking cool.
That's pretty awesome. When do I get my Nissan Rover from Mars?
Yeah, that would be awesome. With the big wheels. That's right. Awesome.
Because there's no roads yet on Mars. I hear that they have not paved the roads yet on Mars.
No, I don't believe so. I do not believe so. But I mean, isn't that the best?
Totally.
Best image there. NASA with an autonomous Nissan Leaf, and you have to look very carefully. You notice at the front there's little kind of bubbles there that are used to see what's going on. All right, we'll have an ad break and we'll be right back. Do you enjoy the show? Do you like wearing fun and unique clothes that support the things you love? Then you're going to want to head over to www.transportevolved.com/shop, where you can show support of Transport Evolved by buying one of our fabulous Transport Evolved branded apparel. We've got everything from hoodies and t-shirts to water bottles, badges and tote bags, and they'll be sent direct from our partners at Spreadshirt to your home address in double quick time. What's more, by buying something from our shop, you'll be sending us a little kickback as a thanks for our hard work on the show, and you'll get something unique and fun, and we'll get some warm fuzzy feelings knowing we can continue to bring you a great show every week. What's not to love? With final segment of the show today, I kind of caught me out there. For those who are watching after the event, we've got a problem with our in-studio audio today, which means that the machine that does the carts is playing them silently. I'm going to have to go back and add the audio in post-production. And of course, I was just nattering away. Didn't notice. All right, Gigafactory, Tesla Gigafactory. It's been in production now for quite some time, 6 months, and in 6 months the amount of work being carried out on the Gigafactory is truly stupendous. Our correspondent Bob Tregillis in Reno, Nevada took a photograph this week. I'm not going to put it up now because it will break the system. It is that big. Massive. I mean, it's like 200 megabyte image that is on our server at transportevolved.com. You can go and look at it and click on it and enlarge it and zoom around. But it shows you just how big some of these this construction on the Tesla Gigafactory is. This is an image here. This is a massive crane. You can't see it here in the image, but the people are like little dots. Is Tesla going to be on time with this factory construction, Mark?
Well, Tesla's never on time. No one's ever on time. I'm never on time. I think it's just great that, he can take a photograph and show that, tremendous progress is being made and let us hope that this thing really moves along. I think we all hope for the best. Massive numbers of batteries. Let's get the X out. Let's start seeing some noise about the Tesla 3, and it'll make us folks in the EV world very happy. I think we have learned to expect some delays.
Yes.
But
it is incredible, 6 months, how much work has been done. And if you look at the image on its own, it doesn't look very big. But then if you go onto Google Maps, and Google Maps has a feature that allows you to measure the distance of buildings and distances along roads, and you can go to the other two images, to the other two buildings that are in the image off to the left, and you can actually measure those buildings and work out the area. Those two other buildings are about 17 acres each, and the Gigafactory site is just completely dwarfs those buildings, and they are big buildings. So it's going to be. I
saw a comparison image. Someone did a story on it.
Yeah,
and it was a comparison. And it was, what was it, like 6 or 7 times or maybe 10 times the size of the Dallas Cowboys Stadium?
Oh, yes,
something
that's
like
right.
That,
yeah,
or
that's
something
right.
like that. I guess the other joke could be made is which one is going to be done sooner, the Tesla Gigafactory or Apple's new spaceship campus?
That's a good point.
They're both
absolutely.
they're within about 6 months a year of their deadlines when they're supposed to be done.
You mentioned drones, and now you've mentioned the Apple, the new Apple headquarters. If you search around somewhere, I saw this most amazing drone view of the construction of the Apple headquarters. That if you can find, it's well worth the view. It's
some
very
of the
exciting.
the Apple blogs have a new version of it like every couple of weeks now. It seems.
Oh,
they do.
Excellent.
Yeah,
okay,
not
Apple Insider and I think Mac Observer, one of those two.
Yeah, and I think
does
9 to 5 sometimes does it as well. The other thing, obviously, is it is just such a massive project. It really is. And one of our listeners, I should note, has built this fantastic. He's been doing some images where he's basically, and he's been sending it to us, putting the Gigafactory on a map relative to the local area of all the Transport Evolved stuff. So he sent one to me, someone to Marc, he sent one to Michael, showing the Gigafactory's footprint on a local map of our area, and it is stonkingly huge. It really is. All right, Hyundai. Always been about the fuel cell, despite Kia, its sister company, being about electric cars. This week, Hyundai went, we're going to be making an electric car for 2016. And we said at Transport Evolved that, well, maybe that's a sign that Hyundai has decided that hydrogen fuel cell cars aren't for it. Hyundai then got in touch and went, no, we're still doing hydrogen fuel cell cars. We just want to have a nice balanced portfolio. What's your reaction to it, Mark?
Well, I have no special knowledge. I'm really glad to hear Hyundai actually got in touch with you and said that we're not giving up on fuel cells. I mean, I'm not happy that they aren't giving up on fuel cells, but I think it's obviously only good news that they are going to release an electric car. The more options available to people, the more choices, the more brands, the better. And to the extent that they are a company that has previously said no to EVs and now is going to come out with one. We do have certain bragging rights of I told you so. And I suspect we will get to do that for the next few years as more companies are beginning to explore what they will do in the EV space.
Joe, do you have anything to add?
I would say at this point, any vehicle manufacturer, even at the high end, we have seen some of the very, very high end luxury brands get into this as well. If you're not making some sort of battery electric vehicle, or if it's not on your roadmap, you're not going on the right track, honestly, at this point in time.
Okay. I think that's a fair enough comment to make, and I think Toyota's going to lose its shirt in some respects on that. All right, let's move on. So, CES wasn't just about electric cars and autonomous driving, etc., etc. This year, we also saw this demonstrated, which is an interesting vehicle. It's called the Gogoro, and it's actually a scooter, and it combines battery swapping with a scooter. It's designed for use in Asia. Now, we've got lots of people saying, oh, well, who needs a scooter that needs battery swapping? But the idea is it doesn't have an onboard charger, so you can't plug it in to charge, which I will admit is a bit disappointing. But it's got these two modular battery packs which use the same cells as is found in the Tesla Model S, two Panasonic, those Panasonic consumer grade cells, and the batteries fit under the seat. And when you've got to a point where your battery is depleted after about 60 miles of riding at 25 miles an hour, which sounds slow, but we'll come to that in a second. You can swap your battery pack out at a kiosk and then carry on. Now, it might not work in the States. It might not work in some cities, but I can actually see this working. Top speed of 60 miles an hour. Again, it's not designed as a high-speed vehicle. It's designed primarily for use in countries where two-stroke scooters are considered the norm. And it would work with delivery companies, it would work with pizza delivery companies, it would work with people who are currently relying on smelly two-stroke scooters. Mark, what do you make of this?
DOA. I
really?
think that, yeah. It's got better prospects than Better Place, but it's got the same essential flaws. Basically, they're taking a vehicle where there's established and simple technology to recharge the vehicle. If you go to China now, you will see in the major cities in Shanghai, Beijing, and I'm sure now in some of the other cities, a top-down effort was made to get rid of these two-stroke two-wheelers and replace them with electric vehicles. There are hundreds of thousands of two-wheeled battery electric scooters in Shanghai and Beijing. People, in fact, take the battery off the car, bring it up to their apartment, plug it in. The notion that there is a vehicle that will come onto the market that requires its own proprietary charging kiosks that will require a fair bit of investment, nothing like a Better Place swap station, but nonetheless, there need to be many more of them than with Better Place. And that they'll pepper the cities with these all over the place, and that's an independent business that's worthy of it. I think it's going to the extent that it seduces folks the way Better Place did. It will make the leadership a bunch of money and lose money for the investors. If it had at least the ability to plug into the wall, I would say perhaps the rather awesome and beautiful design incorporated into it would have a chance to see the light of the street. But given that it's basically a closed system dependent on its own proprietary charging kiosks, I think it certainly doesn't deserve a place in the market.
Well, here's my take. I hear what you're saying about the plug, and I've been talking to a lot of people about it this week. I'm quite excited about it, not because it's for everyday people. I don't think your average Joe in the street is going to want to own one, but I can see this working in bike share programs where you have people who come to a commuter situation where they book the bike in advance, they arrive, it's got a full battery, they charge it off, they get on it and off they go. I can also see it working in a B2B situation. So if you've got say a delivery company in an urban city like a big sort of big mega city like London or Paris or Milan, where pizzas or other things are needed to be ridden across town all day, every day, continuously. I can imagine a company coming along and going, okay, we're going to buy, we're going to buy a couple of kiosks, and we're going to buy, 10 bikes, and we're going to have the kiosks at our depot. We're going to have one depot here, one on the other side of town, and we're just going to use them all day, backwards and forwards. And then it becomes the equivalent of supercharging or rapid charging for bikes. And at that point, I can see it working because they can get across town. They can get through traffic much quicker than, say, a regular car. But I think you're right. I think from a commercial to customer, private customers, I don't see it catching on.
It would catch on if the standard was open and if these batteries were usable by other, electric scooters. And the other thing is, it's only going to work in these markets that people like to drive scooters. I don't know that it would work everywhere in the States. People are concerned with getting run over or losing your life on a scooter out here.
I don't think it would work in the States.
Very, very flashy intros, very, very cool concept, very well thought out in a way in terms of, for getting all the investors on board. But yeah, I just don't know. And they would have to, for their solution to work, they would have to plaster a city with these battery swap stations. And I just don't really see that happening. Okay.
Well, we've got our two final stories coming on. So the Model X debuted again at CES this year. This is another iteration of the Model X from Tesla. A final. Hopefully we see the final production version. It does make me wonder about clearance in the back there for the third row of seats. I'm getting tired of seeing these display cars. I just want to see the real thing. I don't know how you guys feel about this, Joe.
Well, we know it's coming. The production is what was the latest for 2015? It's going into production in the spring or the summer or what?
No, end of the year now.
Oh, so it's another year delay.
I think it's going to be the end of the year. I think it was sort of.
They're really working on those doors, wasn't it? The doors is the biggest problem. Didn't DeLorean have the same problem with their doors and it was a different design?
Yes, and now you mentioned DeLorean, I should have put this in the show notes and I didn't. DeLorean, the electric car company, I think they're in Texas, or they're being sued by the widow of the original owner of DeLorean.
Oh, really?
Who says that they don't have, who's claiming that they don't have license to use
They've been in business for like 5 or 10 years now doing these things. And who knows what will happen at the end of this year. There may be a flying DeLorean that shows up in October,
It's
insane. I'm just kidding. But anyway.
All right. Final story for you, Mark. This one. How should I put this? 4 US states are being nominated for a Luddite Award. Have you heard
have
of
my
that?
interest?
Okay, so the states of Michigan, Arizona, New Jersey, and Texas, sorry, Joe, are all being put forward for a joint Luddite Award by a DC think tank, effectively, a Washington DC think tank. And the idea is that they're being put forward for this award because they have banned Tesla from selling direct to customers. Joe, I don't know how many Tesla owners you see in Arizona.
Not a whole lot. And we were, to add to this, Arizona was named the most corrupt state in the U.S. last year. So isn't that great?
I'm just pulling up the story now. I can't remember the name of the, it was a company, an organization. It's called the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation.
ITIF.
Yeah, ITIF. And it's their first annual Luddite Awards. But they've got some other companies who are up for nomination. Interestingly, it's put the EFF up on there, the Electronic Frontier Foundation. You can actually vote for your winner, your chosen winner, and they're going to pick a winner by the 5th of February. You can vote for the National Rifle Association for opposing smart guns. You can vote for the Vermont legislature for passing law regarding GMO food labelling. You can vote for the aforementioned 4 states for banning Tesla. The French government for stopping Amazon from providing free shipping on books. You can vote the Stop Smart Meter campaign for stopping smart innovation in meters and cars. The Free Press lobbies for rules to stop innovation in broadband networks. New York State for cracking down on Airbnb. Virginia and Nevada for their take on ride-sharing schemes. The media and pundits claiming that robots are killing jobs, and the EFF for their opposition to health IT. It's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke, but I do hope that those 4 states win, don't you, Marc?
Well, I think that was quite a grab bag of issues, some of which I agreed with, some of which I didn't. I suspect this outfit is, the plaything of some libertarian tech moguls, who's got a way of broadcasting their own concerns. I mean, I think much of that stuff mentioned was inappropriate for a Luddite award, but that's just the difference in our politics. Sure, I think that it's absurd that there are states that are trying to ban or make difficult the sales of Teslas, but let's be clear, they're not trying to make them difficult because they're selling plug-in cars. They're trying to make it difficult because they're seeking a different model of sales, and after 100 years of regulation that came to be for reasons that were at least perfectly comprehensible at the time and possibly corrupted at this point. And each of those issues really needs to be explored on its own merits and not simply mocked.
Yeah, we're quite right. And of course, it's not about Tesla. It's about the other car companies coming along and going, oh, we'd quite like to do what Tesla's done. And the auto dealers going, oh, no, you don't. That is really it for today's show. Thanks very much for joining us today. Marc, thank you for joining us. First time you've been able to see two ways.
No, I've been watching myself for years now. No, I mean on your show.
There we go. But Joe, first time for you.
Yes, it's nice to see you live. It's nice to see the other guests.
Rather than with a delay, which is what we normally
know
say.
Whether I'm actually in the shot or not, so I can plug in my phone if it's going to die.
It does work. Thanks to you both for joining us today. Joe, where can people find out about you?
People can find me at Nido Cayman on all of the social things out there, and find my Lighting Answers website and video series at youtube.com/lightinganswers.
Fantastic. And for those who haven't seen Joe before, look at his excellent lighting there. That's perfect. That's better than mine. My lighting here sucks. Joe's lighting perfect. Okay.
Yours a bit washed out, Nikki.
I know. It's all the it's the green screen and the processing. And Marc, where can people find out more about you?
Well, you can find out about the things I'm doing at pluginamerica.org and at adoptacharger.org. And occasionally, though it's been quite a while, I write at plugsandcars.blogspot.com.
Fantastic. And thanks to everyone for watching at home today. Don't forget you can find us on YouTube. You can find us every day at transportevolved.com, and you can subscribe to our shows in iTunes as well. Don't forget we do TEN every Friday, which is our Friday news roundup from the world of green and future tech cars. As with last week, I suspect there's going to be a massive amount of news this week at the Transport Evolved website because it's the North American International Auto Show this week. So I'll do my best to keep up, as will everybody else. Until then, thanks for joining us, and don't forget to plug in. Take care. See you. Bye-bye.